Ah, how's it going, past me? I'm good. You don't seem too good, dude. You just jumped right out of your body as soon as I walked in here. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought you were an evil clone. Wait, why would you think I was an evil clone? Yeah, it was a whole thing a few years ago. There was just evil clones everywhere I turned. Well, I'm not an evil clone, dude. I'm you, from the future. But wait, how do I know you're not an evil clone? Honestly, dude, who else would time travel from the future into the past to make sure you made a video on time? Oh, is this about the Bill and Ted history video? I was thinking of pushing back a couple weeks. Yeah, dude, delaying this would be your worst mistake ever. So my worst mistake wasn't making Month of Monsters? That's good. But why do I have to do it today? Like, can I just push it off a week or two? Well, that's because this is the only time 6/9 lands on a Friday, dude. This is the best time to do a Bill and Ted video on 6/9, June 9th. Like, come on. All right, I'll get it done. But do I have to do the voice the whole time? What voice? You know, the voice, dude. Nah, I'm just playing with it. You don't have to do the voice, dude. Excellent! Oh, that's a big relief. I don't think I could keep it up for the entire video, if I'm being honest. You know, I'm remembering now the one time you did do the voice, the whole multiverse collapsed. Okay. Good luck with the video, past me. Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to the non-heinous history of Bill and Ted action figures. This will be going over every toy release for Bill and Ted from 1991 to 2020, somewhere in the future, because there's a weird one at the end. We are going to be covering everything that has been released and has planned to release as of the recording of this video, so check the upload date if you're seeing this in the future and wondering why didn't he cover this. I have done extensive hours of research to find every toy of the most excellent dudes in our entire universe, and Bill and Ted are just such wonderful characters that I think this will be a fun experience to go through. Bill and Ted, for those unaware, was a series of films featuring the two main characters, Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan, two San Dimas high school teenagers who were going to be failing history class. However, their music in the future would cause society to change and become one of peace and love and unity. But in order to do that, they had to pass history class. That's where time traveler Rufus came in, telling them if they didn't pass their history test, they were going to doom the entire future of the planet. And it's a great, wonderful comedy. This was, of course, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Followed up with their Bogus journey, where it saw them going to hell. I'm not even kidding, that's just where the sequel goes. And of course, creating their band, the Wild Stallions, properly to perform a song that might have united the world, except it wasn't that one, because in Bill and Ted Face the Music, they had to come to terms with the fact that 30 years later, they hadn't written the song that was supposed to unite the entire world. And that is essentially how Bill and Ted goes. These two characters are some of the most beloved characters in cinema for those that have enjoyed these movies, because, well, here's the thing. Bill and Ted act kind of, okay, they're idiots, let's be honest. They're both complete idiots, but they're so heartfelt in everything they do. They just love what they do, they love music, they just appreciate each other, and just everything to them is so simple into the perfect human experience. They're like two lost puppies who just don't know where to go, but you can't help but love them along the way. And that is why, for me, these movies have stood out as some of my favorites because of the just general warm feeling they provide when watching them. And on the opposite side of that, it's not necessarily the most toyetic franchise, which is why we can do the entire history of Bill and Ted toys in a single video. So, in order to cover the history of the toys, we should cover the history of Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted as characters started as ideas of writers Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, who came up with it during an improv class, and then eventually created a script treatment, and it got produced by Orion Pictures. And then it sat on the shelf because Orion Pictures went through bankruptcy. It was eventually released a couple years later and did pretty good at the box office. On a $10 million budget, it made about $40 million. That's enough to be considered a success. And what's really great about this is it also helped launch the careers of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, who have gone on to do so many amazing things since. Plus, they were able to get George Carlin as Rufus, which is a pretty big get for a very small budget sort of indie film that it was. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was something that nobody involved ever expected to hit, including the studio. Essentially, MGM just started releasing what Orion had sitting on the shelf, and then went, oh wow, that actually connected with some people. So because of that, the first way that toys came into play was not with Excellent Adventures released in 1989. Outside of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the computer game, which I imagine was not great because it was on the Commodore 64, that was sort of the only like merch and toy related things that they got initially. However, because of the success of Excellent Adventure, they started developing a sequel, which eventually became Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and that released in 1991. However, just before the release of that film was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. So Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures was an animated series that ran from September 15th, 1990 to November 16th, 1991. It had 2 seasons. The first season was produced by Hanna-Barbera and featured the actual movie cast of Alex Winter, Keanu Reeves, George Carlin, and even like their teacher. Pretty stacked cast. And then season 2 was produced by Deke, which replaced most of the movie cast with traditional voice actors. There was never a complete DVD set for this show. There was just a best of volume, which is kind of a shame because it's kind of a fun series. Also, it being called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures is a little confusing when you look for it online sometimes because you might run into the much worse 1992 live action show, which we'll talk about in a moment. But essentially, you're looking at Bill and Ted having 2 movies, an animated show, a video game tie-in, but where are the toys? The trifecta of original media in the 80s and 90s was your movie, your cartoon, and your toys. So, let's take a look at Kenner's 1991 Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure toy line and look at everything they released and everything they didn't release.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure!
I'm Bill S. Preston Esquire, and I'm Ted Theodore Logan in concert!
And I make them play.
Speaker connects to figures and most cassette players to make figures play music.
Now on drums, that bodacious barbarian Genghis Khan! Yeah, our new pal from old China. Excellent! Let's rock and roll!
Squeezing their legs gets them jamming.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure!
Party on, dudes!
So let's look at the 1991 Kenner Toys Bill and Ted action figures. There was an assortment of 5-inch basic figures with Bill, Ted, and several other characters from the movies. Naturally, first up is Bill S. Preston Esquire. He's in a white Wild Stallions t-shirt and comes with an orange guitar. You can squeeze his legs to activate a guitar playing feature. And of course, his most excellent compatriot, Ted Theodore Logan, includes a purple guitar and has that same guitar playing gimmick. These guitar playing gimmicks work in conjunction with the separately sold Wild Stallions speaker and tape accessory. You get a speaker, you plug the speaker into the figures, you plug it into your own tape player, put the tape in, and you get extra 6 tracks of music to play with the figures. The idea is that it'll play things through the speaker when you squeeze the figure's legs. The speaker and tape were also available in the Wild Stallions Jam Session 2-pack, featuring variants of Bill and Ted based upon the originally deleted prom scene from the end of Excellent Adventure. This scene you may never have seen because, well, it's kind of lost media at this point, but it was the original ending of the film. Now, of the Kenner line, the only ones I do own are the Jam Session versions of Bill and Ted. So here is Bill, looking pretty cool with his flare orange shorts with the Wild Stallions logo on it, and of course, his tuxedo top. Ted is in a similar style where he's got the flare orange shorts, but also the tuxedo top, and he looks pretty spot on overall. In fact, putting them together, you can kind of see the Kenner filter applied to both actors' likenesses, and you can definitely tell that it's Bill and Ted. What's also kind of fun is that this is one of the only times where Bill is actually noticeably shorter than Ted, which is accurate to the actor's original heights. Now, articulation-wise is going to be super limited on these guys. The head kind of wobbles around, one arm moves independently, one is part of a gimmick, and the legs move forward. Said gimmick is pretty fun. You squeeze their legs and they basically play guitar. I don't have the guitars, so they air guitar. Also on the back of every figure you can see the port where you'd plug in the speaker cord from the speaker accessory, which I don't have, so I can't really demonstrate too well. Now, Bill and Ted are not the only characters in this assortment. We also, of course, have Rufus. Rufus is here with a futuristic guitar shoulder strap harness thing, plus a briefcase. Though originally the prototype showed him with a standing keyboard, which actually went to Abe Lincoln. And speaking of Abe Lincoln, his final release did have that standing keyboard, and it's a pretty good version of the 16th President of the United States. In addition to that, his hat is removable and he's got the Wild Stallions logo on his hair. And then once again, he had a different instrument in the original catalog, which was the one that eventually came with Rufus. So it seemed like those two accessories either got swapped or were planned to be with the other in the beginning. Of course, we have Bill S. Preston Esquire, but we also have Billy the Kid, here with his guitar and lasso. It's kind of fun to see some of these more historical figures. Like Genghis Khan, who plays the drums with a couple weapons of his. It's pretty cool to see this band sort of come together. Keyboard, drums, a few too many guitars, but there's Genghis Khan. And then just add another guitar, we have the Grim Reaper. Now this is based on the Grim Reaper from Bogus Journey. However, the original concept for him is that he would be more skeleton-like, as opposed to the Seventh Seal parody that we got in Bogus Journey. So this actually kind of reflects some things from the original Bill and Ted comic that continued the tradition of having the skeletal Grim Reaper based on the original concept for Bogus Journey. Naturally, you can't have a Bill and Ted toy line without a phone booth, and the excellent phone booth is a pretty fun accessory. Though it does look a little bit small, like you only fit one figure inside of it, it does have an action feature. And that action feature is using the phone to capture historical figures and take them into the phone booth. Now, that wasn't the only toys that were planned for Excellent Adventure. Ones that never came out included Napoleon, and there actually was a couple different prototype variations of him. He would have an outfit switch like Genghis Khan did, where he would be in his swimming gear, and we can see that better outside the catalog images with this prototype that was sold recently in a lot with other prototypes for the line. It's a shame Napoleon never came to be, because that was the other character that they had planned. There was also planned another vehicle, the Talking Cruiser, which looks like a generic 90s car, but you could fit two figures inside of it, and a button would have 6 different Bill and Ted sayings. There also was the Most Excellent Motorcycle, which was a pair of motorcycles that could split in the middle to capture historical figures. There's a lot of kidnapping in this toy line, and I'm slightly concerned. The last vehicle would have been the Boom Truck. More like Boom Box than like Explode Truck, but essentially it would work with the speaker and the tape, and then have the figures be able to play a concert on the back of the truck while somebody drives it. This was also on display at Toy Fair 1991, and sadly there's no other video of that event that I could find. And the last item that was planned that was canceled was the historical playset. Kind of a nice mix of the castle they found the princesses at, even though the princesses didn't have figures, bummer. And then the saloon, which they met Billy the Kid at, and of course a band concert setup, and a slide, which I can only assume is a reference to the wonderful water park Waterloo. So unfortunately, the true Bogus Journey here was Kenner's line ending pretty early. The fact is that the line just seemingly didn't do well in conjunction with a few things we'll talk about in a moment, but it's just kind of a bummer because Kenner had the opportunity to do a really expansive Bill and Ted line. As they see, they did the historical figures. They even got the Grim Reaper in there, even if he is not exactly how we would see him in Bogus Journey. The problem is that the line had potential, but it just didn't click, and it may have come just a little bit too late, like pretty much everything following up Excellent Adventure's success. It's kind of hard to just suss out the business in the late 80s and early 90s. There was so much coming out. To merely make a breakout, almost impossible. But I will give credit to the Kenner line. It is the most extensive Bill and Ted line we've ever seen. But 1991 was not only Bogus Journey and a toy line. We also had Bill and Ted's Excellent Video Game Adventure on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which took place after Excellent Adventure. There was also Bill and Ted's Excellent Game Boy Adventure, A Bogus Journey, which took place after Bogus Journey. And both of those actually got re-released this year in 2023 with a digital edition and a physical edition that's still in production because Limited Run Games is pretty much one of the slowest companies on Earth. I will have it someday. But then there was also Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on the Atari Lynx, also taking place after Bogus. I think it's a different game than those other two. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, I think, is a great movie, though it was held back by the fact that it was being rushed into production. The third act wasn't completed the way they originally planned, and they completely rewrote it late into production, so it gets a little messy. It's not as well received as the previous film, and the box office did not show up. Bogus Journey had double the budget, but less box office return than the original. So a $20 million budget with only $38 million back, not good. Not good at all. Now, of course, that didn't spell the end of the franchise. They kept trying to push forward. For example, after doing the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey comic adaptation, Evan Dorkin did Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Comic Book for Marvel, which was pretty much dead within a year, but hey, at least it was something. It's kind of like a future version of what happens after Bogus Journey when we didn't know if we were getting a third movie. And then the unfortunate part, which is the last piece of Bill and Ted media for, oh my god, a long time, 1992's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. Not to be confused with the much better show from 1990. The thing is that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures is a 7-episode show that had no involvement from Ed Solomon or Chris Matheson or any of the original actors, because Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves were busy doing things. But no involvement from the original creators meant that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures lacked everything that made Bill and Ted special. And this would actually start a trend of people not understanding the Bill and Ted characters. Like I said, they're not jerks, they're not complete dummies, they're not stoners, they're not surfers. They're like just kind of these chill dudes that live in California. And the thing is that when you get Bill and Ted media not done by Ed and Chris, or by people that understand them like Evan Dorkin, because he did a really great job with this, you sort of get some really cynical, jerky characters, and it doesn't work. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures is one of those cases. Also, the Halloween Horror Nights Bill and Ted live show, which ended because of controversies of racism and homophobia within the scripts. Yeah, I don't think anybody really understood how to write Bill and Ted anytime after the first 2 movies, which is unfortunate. The animated series hit the vibe. The original Excellent Adventure comic hit the vibe, but everything after Bogus Journey did not. And that is why the franchise essentially just went completely iced. This also means there were no more toys. And that's where we're getting back to our original point, aren't we? Now, while Ed, Chris, Alex, and Keanu were trying to get a third Bill and Ted movie together for almost 20 years, essentially there was nothing happening with Bill and Ted for a long time. After Excellent Adventures was canceled, there was the Halloween Horror Nights show, which the less said, the better. But then in 2001, we got the 2 movies on DVD, but that was mostly just library dumping because everybody was doing that. And then there was nothing. Again, just like that was the only thing between 92 and 2015. In 2015, Boom Studios picked up the license for Bill and Ted and published Bill and Ted's Most Triumphant Return, followed by Bill and Ted Go to Hell, based on the original title for Bogus Journey, and Bill and Ted Save the Universe. So at least once a year, there was a 5-issue Bill and Ted miniseries. It was nice to get some new Bill and Ted in our lives. And honestly, the work done here is great. It shows a potential future after Bogus Journey where Face the Music wasn't a thing, and I quite enjoyed what they had here. It seems like they nailed the tone of the characters, and the art style is really fantastic. Now, the interesting part here is that after that 2015 Most Triumphant Return miniseries, Shout Factory released the Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Collection Blu-ray in 2016. Now, this set is both movies on Blu-ray, fully restored, with an entire extra bonus disc of bonus features featuring new interviews with people involved with the creation and original actors. It's terrific. It's probably the best release of the movies. If you're looking for them, go find the Shout Factory Blu-ray. But the thing is that, this wasn't necessarily an impending moment of, hey, we're going to have, a bunch of Bill and Ted resurgence, but a comic book miniseries, a brand new Blu-ray, and the fact this Blu-ray also coincided with the release of the NECA 8-inch retro-clothed action figures. So, let's take a look and see what NECA did as the first Bill and Ted toys since 1991. So NECA's 8-inch retro-cloth figures are kind of a thing they've been doing for a long time, and they released Bill and Ted in a Wild Stallions 2-pack. And that's pretty much the gist of it. It came out in 2016 with a re-release in 2020. So first up we have Bill S. Preston Esquire, decked out in his Excellent Adventure costume. And what's nice about this is because the Kenner figures weren't really based on the movie looks, this is our actually first film-accurate figure. Film accurate has a little bit of a asterisk to it because I don't know what this likeness is. There's a little Alex Winter in it, but that expression is strange. But he does have a most excellent handmade Wild Stallions t-shirt with his name on the back. What's also pretty cool is they kept the crop top intact, even if the figure is a little bit more ripped than Alex Winter was. Plus, the purple shirt tied around his waist can be removed, and you can see the upside down question mark on his pants. He can wear that shirt, but it looks a little strange because there's no buttons or anything, really. It's kind of just a piece of cloth. He naturally does come with a guitar, which is really nice and decked out with paint details. And he can hold it pretty good. The articulation range on these isn't much, but it's enough to get basic poses. Now Ted Theodore Logan comes packed with his jacket on, and you can see that he has, once again, the excellent adventure-specific look to him. And also, once again, the likeness is weird with an expression that I question heavily. Also, Ted's jacket isn't stitched evenly, and that's either intentional design choice or poor manufacturing. You decide. Plus a nice touch of the Save the Humans and smiley face stickers on his shorts. The jacket is removable, but I do recommend removing one of his hands. And now we got kind of a classic Ted look with the black vest and the white t-shirt. You can tie the jacket around his waist, so it's a little trickier because the sleeves aren't as long as Bill's jacket. Naturally, he also does come with a guitar, differently designed than Bill's, and Ted can rock out with the guitar he doesn't know how to play yet. Also included is a cardboard box in the design of the phone booth. This 2-pack's pretty good. Outside of the weird expressions, these are probably more film accurate design-wise because of the cloth than a lot of other Bill and Ted figures. And in general, they make a nice pairing, which is really cool. Though for some reason, they did get a single release of Ted out. I never saw a single release of Bill. It's a really strange thing. Oh, also these are 8-inch scale, so they're not gonna fit in with your Marvel Legends or even your NECA Ultimates or your other Keanu Reeveses that have guitars. And that's a little bit of a bummer because they are just too big for all of those. The Retro Cloth line had 2 other releases. There was Rufus, who was included with the Shout Factory Blu-ray in an exclusive bundle to their web store, and is basically impossible to get now, and the San Diego Comic-Con 2017 exclusive of Death. Both of these couldn't be re-released due to actor likeness rights, apparently, when they re-released the 2-pack. So NECA's line didn't last that long, and 2 of the figures are impossible to get nowadays. It's a kind of a shame, but at least they did make a Rufus and a Death. Now, that of course meant that we were starting to reach a point where it was once again, is the franchise viable enough to create an entire toy line? And the answer continually seems to be no, which is a bummer. But what isn't a bummer is that in 2018, Bill and Ted Face the Music, that at the time known as Bill and Ted 3, was greenlit. We finally got our 3rd Bill and Ted movie in 2020 after a short production in 2019. This was one of the highlights of 2020 because that was a pretty crappy year. I gotta say that this movie just seemed like a dream come true. Alex, Keanu, Ed, and Chris, they were all pushing for this. Keanu Reeves' success with the John Wick franchise helped propel MGM and the other people involved to really go for, hey, let's actually release this movie. And maybe the sales of the comic books and the NECA figures helped with that. I don't know if that's a factor at all. But from 2015 to 2018 getting the movie greenlit to 2020 with seeing it released meant that we actually had new Bill and Ted stuff. So on August 28th, 2020, Bill and Ted Face the Music released in theaters where theaters were open and premium video on demand, and then later on Blu-ray. And then from there, we kind of got a little bit of a new boom of Bill and Ted stuff. First things first, Evan Dorkin returned to Bill and Ted Comics with Bill and Ted Are Doomed, which takes place after Bogus Journey, showing a potential future where Face the Music actually happened. It is the official prequel to the film. And it was nice to see an original creative come back, because Evan Dorkin really did understand these characters quite well. So in 2020, a brand new company entered the scene. Incendium, which is mostly known for posters, vinyl, pins, t-shirts, like that kind of stuff. They were like, we're doing toys. And I'm like, cool. And then, spoiler alert, they're not that great at doing toys, but they're getting better with being incredibly slow. But in 2020, they released 2 action figures of Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan from Excellent Adventure. This, of course, was because of Face the Music, obviously, but that was finally new Bill and Ted toys. But before we talk about those, we need to backtrack to 2 other companies that put out stuff in conjunction with Face the Music, even if they were a little late. You know, it wasn't like when the movie dropped, but in the time frame, Blitzway produced 2 1/6 scale Bill and Ted figures. So Blitzway's 2-pack of Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan in the 1/6 scale style looks magnificent. I never picked this up because the $400 price point, as well as them being 1/6 scale, which is just not anywhere near scales I normally collect, had me pass them. But these are downright the most accurate Bill and Ted figures ever produced. Just the level of detail from the design on Ted's shirt to the overall look of like Bill's shirt, like the purple one in particular, the details of the guitars, the fact that like everybody's got their bracelets and watches and socks. It's all the details the NECA ones were missing. And the accessories are really impressive, going down to the Wild Stallions CD, Ted's backpack, the phone from the phone booth, stands, banners. Like, this is a fully decked out set, and if I could have afforded it / had a place to put 2 highly detailed 1/6 scale figures in my collection, totally would have gotten it. And then on top of that, NECA jumped back in to go into their Toony line, which had been mostly Toony Terrors and featured Back to the Future animated series characters, with a 2-pack based on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. NECA gets back into the Bill and Ted game with their tuned out Ted Theodore Logan and Bill S. Preston Esquire 2-pack based on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. And I love that NECA does 2-packs for Bill and Ted because it just makes the most sense for these characters. First up, of course, Bill S. Preston Esquire, looking all super toony. What I find interesting about these is they give them really dynamic cartoony poses, and with Bill, he's balancing on one foot, which I'm glad he has a stand, because otherwise he'd definitely be falling over. And yes, these are essentially statues, much like a lot of the Toony Terrors figures, but you can pose them slightly. What's really good for Bill is you can adjust the weight balance on his ankles mostly, but the rest of the joints are kind of useless. But you can't deny that he looks just like he ripped straight out of the TV show and into a figure form. I think that's the biggest benefit of the Toony figures. Of course, Ted Theodore Logan follows the same thing, except his feet are flatter on the ground. You could probably pose him without the stand if you wanted to. Ted's articulation is just as limited as Bill's, however, you can actually tweak the head pose more because he's got a bit of a ball joint, so there's a little bit of adjustment in the pose that Ted has, which is kind of neat. But in general, you're going to be having him in this one pose. There's not really options here. This is kind of like, let's get some 5-inch scaled, cartoony, cartoon-like figures. And there's no denying that this is definitely the Excellent Adventures versions of the characters. They just look so cartoony and fun, and I just really, really enjoy them. Plus, with the included stands that don't take up more space than the figures do, it actually really helps to keep the figures stable, and I wish that like all the Toony Terrors came with stands, because some of those aren't as stable as these guys. So now we're going to roll back around to Incendium's toys, because, well, alright, first release of 2020, 2021, they start being the only people doing Bill and Ted stuff. And essentially, we've gotten a release every 7 to 8 months. It's been incredibly slow. In fact, I still don't have the last thing they solicited, even though I ordered it for an arrival in Q1 2022. It is Q2 2023, and I've heard no update on that. So let's take a look at Incendium's line, because outside of Kenner, this is the most extensive line. Most extensive being there's only 3 characters, but that's better than only having 2. So let's take a look at the Incendium Toys Bill and Ted action figure line. So Incendium Toys' first releases in their FigBiz line was Bill S. Preston Esquire on a really cool retro looking card. I especially love the new artwork, and I love the corner box having Rufus and the princesses. Would like figures of those still. And then of course Ted Theodore Logan is much in the same style. I love the Wild Stallions sticker on the front because that just adds to the whole fun vibe of it. It's definitely supposed to invoke a retro looking figure. So now taking a look at Bill himself, you can see that he does have a blue shirt as opposed to a purple one. The blue shirt matches the original poster, whereas the purple would match the movie. This will be rectified later. But he overall has kind of that Excellent Adventure styling to him. Now, articulation on Bill is the same for all the other Bill and Teds. Ball-jointed head, shoulders that move a little bit, elbows and swivels, no wrist articulation, hips that barely move anywhere, forward, back, left, right. Double-jointed knees, which are great, but there's no ankle movement, so it doesn't really do anything. There are a stand included with each of the figures that has the FigBiz logo on it. In general, the face sculpt, I think, gives the impression of Bill, not so much Alex Winter, if that makes sense. But it's, not too bad overall. Not a bad expression, all things considered. Now, Bill's unique accessory is the camera, the video camera they used to record their video at the beginning of Excellent Adventure. Nice inclusion. There's not really a natural way for him or Ted to hold it, though. Now, for his other accessory, you need to swap out his hand, which comes out at the wrist. And now you can have Bill playing the guitar with the new guitar pick hand. Except he can't rotate his wrist on his left hand, meaning he can't grip the guitar. I like what Incendium has going on here styling-wise, but there's some physical limitations. Moving over to Ted Theodore Logan, I do like the way that the body proportions worked out on this guy, and in general his details are there, and especially the t-shirt detail, which is not always covered. His head sculpt is strange. They definitely wanted to capture the smile, but he only has upper teeth, not lower ones. You can't really see his eyes, but he is looking straight up into the sky for some reason. But nice detail with the Save the Human sticker and the little smiley face. Ted's unique accessory is a boombox, which he can actually hold and use in a natural way, which is really cool. Just like with Bill, you can swap out his hand for one with a guitar pick in it. Now Ted comes with a yellow guitar and he holds it quite well. In fact, even though you can't rotate the hand's posed at such a way that it holds the grip of the guitar neck anyways. Would have been nice to see some wrist swivels and some ankle joints in these guys to really bring it on home. But that being said, if you want them to air guitar, totally an option, and I think it looks more natural than them holding the guitars. But they are at a 5-inch scale despite their $30 price tag, so don't expect to put these with any Marvel Legends. In 2021, Incendium's FigBiz line had a lot of releases, starting with the time-traveling phone booth, which came in a really cool, expressive box. Now, for essentially just being a box with an antenna on top, this thing's pretty cool. It definitely matches the phone booth we see in the movies, and it has all the details you'd expect. And the marquee on top glows in the dark, and it glows pretty dang well. Getting the door open can be a little tricky. It does like to get stuck, but if you just kind of pull on the handle there, you can get it, and it folds nice and neat up against itself. Of course, you can see the phone inside the phone booth. It's pretty well detailed, though it's not removable off the hook. And this time around, Bill and Ted can fit comfortably within the phone booth. There's even room for a third figure. There's just not a third figure to put in there. And you can even close the door with them in it, and because of the window, you can actually see them. It's a nice way to keep your figures dust-free while also displaying them in a unique way. The next releases in Incendium's line were the first ever figures of Bill and Ted based on Bogus Journey, which is just excellent! Alright, so we're starting off with Bill. You can see he's in the green shirt with the yellow undershirt, the backwards hat. Unfortunately, the hat doesn't have the Wild Stallions logo on the back. The head sculpt once again looks like Bill, not necessarily Alex Winter. I think it looks overall better than the previous one. He has the same wrist swap system as his previous figure, and he has a brand new guitar. This is the guitar seen at the end of the movie, so it's really cool to see it as a figure form, especially since, again, that carried to comics. Unfortunately, like the previous Bill, he can't hold it properly. He also comes with the evil robot head. Unfortunately, the head socket is this weird dumbbell joint, and I can't quite get the socket part out. Compared to the Excellent Adventure version of Bill, you can see that he is essentially a completely new figure. I don't see any shared parts between them. They are pretty unique. Moving over to Ted, we got Ted in his awesome smiley face jacket. It is, again, nice to see these figures because more media uses these designs than any other Bill and Ted designs. Ted's head sculpt, once again, leaves a lot to be desired, though at least he's looking straight forward this time. It is an improvement, it's just a little weird still. I do really like the way the smiley face is intersected by the hood of the jacket. It's just really nice layered detailing. Same hand swap system as we'd come to expect. They are a little bit harder to put in on the Bogus Journey figures though. And then Ted has his guitar, which he holds less good than the previous one. The strap gets in the way, the overall ankle's off, and I just wish there was wrist swivels. He also does come with a evil robot us head because he's gotta, it makes sense. Once again, compared to the previous Ted, he's actually a completely new figure. What's weird is that Bill's a little taller than his previous figure and Ted's a little shorter, so the height discrepancy isn't accurate and it's made less accurate here. But that being said, they do fit inside the phone booth, which is pretty cool cross compatibility that allows you to have a lot more poses, especially if you want them to be the evil robots or Bill and Ted from the different comics. Following the release of the Bogus Journey versions of the characters, and the Excellent Adventure Air Guitar Edition 2-pack came out from Incendium. This including 2 figures, 2 clear guitars, and a cool Wild Stallions pin. The back is also nice because you can see the bios for Bill and Ted since I didn't show those prior, and you can see the artwork is also included. Makes for a very nice presentation. Now, I don't have any plans to open this, but this is a more movie-accurate Bill because he actually has the purple shirt as opposed to the blue. But then the Ted is less accurate because he has a custom-made Wild Stallions t-shirt as opposed to the t-shirt he wore in the movie. Though I will say the eyes are painted better here. Now, it would be almost an entire year before the next release, but 2022 brought us another FigBiz figure. So here we have the Grim Reaper himself, Death. finally getting a third character into the Incendium line, and it's an iconic one. Now, while there was a long wait, I understand due to Incendium being a small company that things like that happen, but it's nice to finally get him because that was the thing I was waiting on to do this video. So here he is, and what's really cool about him is he's got a mix of plastic robes as well as cloth robes to give an overall kind of more symmetrical feel to him. Now, the cloth part is removable, and you can see his face there. Once again, looks like Death, not so much William Sadler, but it has the nice, deep, sunken-in eyes with the black paint. The articulation has a ball-jointed neck. He has 360 shoulders, elbows that bend a little bit and rotate, actual wrist swivels and pivots, thank you so much. He also does have leg articulation with double-jointed knees, but no ankles, but it's going to be kind of useless because of the plastic cape. Naturally, Death comes with his iconic scythe, because whether you're a king or a little street sweeper, sooner or later you will dance with the Reaper. In addition to that, he does have two hands for the iconic pointing gesture, though because of the mushroom peg style to the bottom of the joint, I've had trouble swapping them and don't want to attempt it too much. One of the most iconic parts about the character in Bogus Journey was the fact he played games with Bill and Ted for them to decide if they could come back to the living world, and one of them was Twister. And hey, I'm pretty impressed this Twister mat can hold figures on it, so of course you can have Bill's showdown with Death on the Twister mat. One of the other games they beat him at was the electronic football, presented here as electronic ootball, with an MFL instead of NFL. I guess that's for Melvin Football League. Unfortunately, it's really tiny, and even getting it up on a table is not going to make it look quite right, but it's a neat inclusion nonetheless. In general, Death is a step up in a lot of ways from Bill and Ted. Having the extra wrist swivels with the pivots means he can actually pose a lot better. It's really, really nice to see the fact he can hold his scythe in two different hands. So hopefully if Incendium does do more Bill and Ted figures in the future, they will be more like Death. Having this trio from Bogus Journey is really, really nice. While we don't get anybody else from the movie, it's just nice to see these because, well, no one really tackled them otherwise. Yeah, NECA did Death, but they didn't do the Bogus Journey versions of the characters. Now, another version of Death was released as an Entertainment Earth exclusive. It's a glow-in-the-dark version, which I didn't feel like I needed, but it's kind of cool to see a variant like this regardless. And that's the entire Incendium Toys collection so far. 2 Bills, 2 Teds, 2 variants in a 2-pack, a phone booth, and Death. A nice rounded collection, and hopefully we get to see more in the future. Particularly the Dead Bill and Ted variant 2-pack that I ordered a long time ago that was supposed to be out Q1 2022, and now Q2 2023, still don't have it, but hopefully that is forthcoming. The wait was worth it for Death. Maybe these will be an improvement over the regular Bogus Journey versions. Now, whether it is a nostalgia bubble that exists for things from the late 80s, early 90s, or the fact that Face the Music kind of reinvigorated some people, we're getting periodic things from Bill and Ted. Incendium throws out a statue, some people do some t-shirts, but then Incendium themselves started publishing their own comics under Opus Comics like Bill and Ted Roll the Dice. And then on top of that, we're starting to get 4Ks of some of the movies with Shout Factory's 2022 Excellent Adventure 4K. So the hope exists that Bill and Ted may get another toy line. I love that Incendium was willing to take a chance to get Bill and Ted figures out there, and I appreciate what they did. However, the slow releases, lack of availability, and higher prices means I don't think it was ever sustainable. It would be really nice to see somebody kind of tackle Bill and Ted, and maybe, slight guess, maybe somebody can do some good head sculpts that aren't a $400 box set. That is essentially kind of the dream. But the fact is that, hey, time keeps marching forward. There may be more Bill and Ted in the future, and I certainly hope so, because I love these characters, and I would love to have more figures based on them. The fact that in the entire history of Bill and Ted toys, there's never been a figure of Station. There's never been the Robot Us's. Either of the princesses, like there's 3 different versions you could do because they changed the actresses that played the princesses every time. There has only been, 2 figures of Rufus, 3 figures of Death. There's no Missy, Mom. There's no Captain Logan. Like, there's so many potentials. On top of the fact that Kenner didn't even touch all the historical figures. Where's Socrates? Beethoven? Like, I don't know, Sigmund Freud. Like, all these characters that we're used to seeing just don't exist. No Joan of Arc. Just all these different people that showed up in these movies. Not to mention the whole time travel crew from Face the Music, you know, or the fact that there's nothing from Face the Music. Like, there's no older Bill and Ted, there's no Billy and Thea, there's no Kelly, there's no Dennis. Like, where are all these figures we could be having? There's so many potential things that have never happened because I don't think the franchise is viable enough for a toy line. You know, if someone really wanted to jump on this and make it like it's an educational toy line and they just like threw out a bunch of historical figures, that'd be cool. But that's just not what we have. The other unfortunate part I've noticed is that while we have a lot of things in the 6-inch action figure scale, Bill and Ted just missed it. We have 5-inch and 8-inch, and then like nothing in the 6 and 7. And that is such a bummer because I don't have a Bill and Ted that can just go in with other figures. So, I don't know, maybe NECA's like the one that would tackle it, do a Bill and Ted like Ultimate in 7-inch scale, whatever it is. Maybe there's a rights holder problem. I just hope that in the future, there is more Bill and Ted figures. And I probably should have asked future me when he was here if there are more Bill and Ted figures in the future and if I ever got that 2-pack from Incendium. I guess we'll only find out when time marches forward. So I hope you enjoyed the heinous history of Bill and Ted toys. It just seems like no matter what, we're never going to get that perfect Bill and Ted toy line, but we can hope for the future that maybe we'll get it someday. I will say that everybody that's tried Bill and Ted toys, I appreciate the fact they even tried. Because honestly, when it comes down to it, Bill and Ted is not a huge property that has like evergreen appeal, so anytime we get toys of it is kind of a miracle. But I'm grateful for everything we have, and I look forward to hopefully more in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment down below and tell me about how your most excellent day is going. You can also find other documentaries like this on the channel with the Star Trek Playmates Toys Retrospective, as well as the Sonic the Hedgehog Jazzwares Retrospective. I plan to do more of these in the future, so be sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell. Also be sure to check out my live streams Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, where I talk about toys, movies, games, comics, all kinds of fun stuff, so you don't want to miss out. Also check out my social media on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Soundout12. You can find my most excellent graphic designer on Twitter, DarkClass643, and the super awesome website, HeroClub at HeroClub.com for geek news and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes!